Hey, howdy, hey. Welcome back to another episode of Regenerative Farming News with me, Heather Heinrichs, a former journalist turned farmer turned passionate advocate for regenerative farming. This week's episode will be shorter than usual as I've had a family emergency come up. I don't have an interview for you this week, but I do have some great ones lined up that I'm really excited to share with you soon. In the meantime, I still wanted to bring you some timely updates and stories from the world of regenerative agriculture. Thanks for your understanding and for tuning in each week. It really means a lot. If you enjoy this podcast, please tap that follow button and share the podcast on your social media. The more folks who learn about regenerative farming, the bigger impact we can make together in transforming our food systems. You can also swing by my Facebook page to join the conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts, answer your questions, and hear about topics you want to explore. Let's dive in. For farm news this week, I want to share a quick update from the Saskatchewan Open Farm Days, and in particular from Axten Farms, run by Tanis and Ian Axten. In an email, Tanis told me that they weren't really sure what to expect going into the event. Their farm is more than an hour away from any other host site, and to make things even more uncertain, it poured rain all morning. But, in true Saskatchewan fashion, that did not stop people from showing up. By the end of the day, 24 visitors had made their way out to Axten Farms, and it turned into a wonderful experience. Tanis said everyone was curious, eager to learn, and genuinely appreciative of the chance to see what regenerative farming looks like on the ground. They toured the farm equipment, looked at plants and seeds, and even saw the cleaning plant and packaging line in action. And because hospitality is always part of farming, Tanis had baked muffins and cookies with their own Axten Farms flour. So most folks stayed for coffee, snacks, and a visit after the tour. Guests came from all over, not just locally, but from Regina, Vancouver, Ceylon, and even Florida. What stood out most was the gratitude. Visitors thanked the Axtens for being so open and taking the time to share their story. Some even commented that it would be nice if more farms in their area would join in, so people could make a full day of farm visits closer together. For the Axtens, it was a refreshing change to have people travel to them and learn instead of the other way around. It was a reminder of the power of open farm days to connect people across distances and help bridge the gap between producers and consumers. It's been quiet this week for regenerative ag news, and I've been wanting to talk more about the role that cattle play in our landscapes. Specifically, how conventional grazing practices can contribute to soil degradation and even desertification. You might remember back in episode 4 when I talked about how cattle, when managed regeneratively, can actually help restore and revitalize cultivated land here in Canada. So how is it that cattle can be both the problem and the solution? Let's talk about how most ranchers are overgrazing their pastures. When we talk about grazing practices, the way we manage cattle on the land has a huge impact on soil health, plant diversity, and long-term productivity. Conventional grazing, the way it's often been done for decades, usually means turning cattle out onto a pasture in the spring and leaving them there all summer. At first, this seems simple and practical. The cows have constant access to grass, and the farmer doesn't have to move them often. But what is actually happening on the land is quite damaging. Cattle are selective grazers. They return to their favorite plants again and again, nibbling regrowth before it has had a chance to recover. Over time, those preferred species die out, and less desirable or even invasive plants take over. Meanwhile, the constant hoof pressure compacts the soil, reducing its ability to absorb water. Without recovery time, roots shrink, bare patches expand, and the soil is left exposed to wind and sun. The result? Less grass growth year after year, poorer water retention, and eventually a process of desertification. Land that once supported healthy pasture becomes dry, degraded, and unproductive. Now, let's compare that to regenerative, high-intensity rotational grazing, sometimes called mob grazing or adaptive multi-paddock grazing. In this system, cattle are kept in smaller paddocks for short periods, often just 1 to 3 days, before being moved to fresh grass. Stocking density is higher, but the time on each paddock is short. The cattle eat more evenly, trample the uneaten forage onto the soil surface as organic matter and soil armor, and then they move on, leaving the plants with weeks of rest to regrow. This recovery period is the secret ingredient. Grasses are allowed to rebuild their root systems, deepen into the soil, and store more carbon. The pasture becomes more diverse, with legumes, forbs, and native grasses thriving together. The soil itself improves, organic matter increases, water infiltration gets better, and microbial life comes back to life under the surface. In fact, research has shown that properly managed rotational grazing can actually reverse desertification, restoring degraded land into lush, resilient pasture. And here's the important part. This isn't a new idea. For thousands of years, massive herds of bison roamed the prairies, moving constantly as predators and seasons pushed them forward. They grazed intensely in one area, trampled the plants, fertilized the soil, and then left, sometimes not returning for months. That natural cycle created some of the most fertile grasslands on Earth. Today, regenerative grazing is really just copying that ancient pattern, using cattle as a tool to mimic the role bison once played in shaping and sustaining prairie ecosystems. The big picture here is that conventional, continuous grazing mines the land until it can no longer produce, while regenerative rotational grazing builds the land so it produces more each year. And the benefits don't stop at the farm gate. Healthier pastures sequester more carbon, reduce erosion, and provide better habitat for wildlife. And the good news is this isn't just theory. Pioneers like Allan Savory in Africa and Gabe in North Dakota have been practicing and teaching these methods for decades, showing how degraded land can be brought back to life. Their work has inspired countless ranchers around the world to adopt regenerative practices, proving that with the right management, cattle can be one of our most powerful tools for healing the land. That's it for this week's episode of Regenerative Farming News. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow the podcast and share it with your friends, family, and fellow farmers. Every share helps spread the word about regenerative agriculture. And if you want to continue the conversation, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, where I post updates, resources, and stories from the field. Together, we can grow healthier soil, stronger farms, and a more resilient future.